being outlaws is in our DNA. That's what it is to be American. We're always the rebel opposition. We're always outnumbered. We're always hated. We're also feared and respected. I wouldn't have things any other way. I'm having a good time.
Hello, evening, and welcome to another edition of the Greene Tavern. We're live from the great old North State. I'm one of your hosts tonight, Kevbot. Along with me, I have Kaiser and tonight's guests. Mr. Marshall, and I know that we went over this before the stream started, but could you introduce yourself really quick?
Sure. I'll go by Marshall Dukat on here. I'm Hollywood Dukat on Twitter. I'm a member of the in terms of our sort of sphere, I'm a member of the Virginia chapter, the Vetus Dominion chapter of the TheOldGloryClub.
Great. Thank you so much. So tonight, gentlemen, just wanted to give everybody a heads up. Our guest canceled at the last moment, unfortunately. So we had to throw together a really quick stream. I have warned everybody that if this happens and if all else fails, we're going to do an hour-long schizo stream. So that's what you guys are getting tonight. I hope that y'all are about to have fun. We're going to talk a little bit about the Hollow Earth and cattle mutilations. And Kaiser is going to start us off tonight with his topic. Kaiser, can you go ahead and start us off for the night?
Absolutely. So my all-time favorite schizo theory just growing up, and one that I genuinely do think has some merit to it, is across the United States, you have this idea of a albino troglodyte tribe that lives within mountains or caves. You see it in North Carolina reflected in the Moon-Eyed people. If you're over in California, so across the entire country, they have a very similar one around Hicks Road in the mountains over near Silicon Valley. called the Hicks Road Albinos, where they have this idea of this tribe of people over there that comes out at night, will attack people, are cannibals, are whatnot, but that live around this area. And that if it's essentially just a dare, right? Like you would go out there and essentially you'd take a girl up there, turn off the lights while you're in your vehicle and be like, oh, there's where our car's stalled, that we were going to get attacked by the albinos. But we have that same thing over in North Carolina, over in this Old North state, and you see it all throughout. It also ties very neatly in with things like the Wendigo, for example, where again you have a tall albino cannibal that lives in the woods, lives in the mountains. It's just this idea that you see sort of permeate in the most modern examples and recreations. You have what the Rake came out in a lot of creepypastas, scary image if you've ever seen it, of just this like unclothed, completely pale, hairless creature man that is just moving through. And this idea just seems to have more weight to it, where it just is old here, where I believe it's the Cherokee have this belief of the Moon-Eyed people. And so I've always just been very fascinated by that. It's something where when I've gone out in the woods at times, you know, it's kind of fun to just go out there, maybe with a gun on your hip, and just look around at caves or different mountainous areas and just think like, oh, hey, look, there's some weird refuse here. Is that something that comes from, you know, possibly some uncontacted human that might live out there, some weird subspecies? What are your guys' thoughts on that? And have you ever heard of anything like this? Are you familiar with it?
Yeah. So we actually covered this in one of our previous streams on the Green Room. It's one of those that we had probably a couple months ago. And within that particular lore, there's a lot of interesting ideas there. Obviously, one is what you mentioned, but off the top of my head, one of the more fascinating stories from that was that it was, what was it, Danish? I would have to look it up, but we did see that that it was believed that there was a group of Europeans actually had come over here, and because of their blonde hair and their blue eyes. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up really quick, because we did talk about that, and it was a rather interesting theory. That is like one of our more, I guess, well known or better kept secrets here in North Carolina. Have you ever seen the structures that they claim that the Moon-Eyed people created?
I've seen the statues of them. Like there's a very famous like paired of the statues where they've got these kind of like really flat faces, weird eyes, and they claim that that's the Moon-Eyed people. It is also very interesting, especially with the North Carolina, that they would be potentially Europeans, because if you think about it, Indians are Asiatic people initially, where they have slanted eyes, and so to call them Moon-Eyed would be, if you look at, if everyone you know has slanted eyes, and then you see people with like normal round eyes like most people have, or eyelids, it would make sense then to call them Moon-Eyed people. But I have not seen the structures. Yeah. What structures did they have?
Yeah, so there's a wall, and there's kind of like some fortress, like there's ruins of some fortress type of structures around. And the reason why that they believed that these were fort-like was it looked like it was built in self-defense, and clearly at the time the Cherokee and any other natives around the area weren't building structures like that. So that's part of the lore. It was actually Welsh, so it was Prince Madoc that was rumored to have left and come to America during that the 12th century. I can see if I can find some of the structures, but there is a wall that I believe that goes from North Carolina, and it can be found down in Georgia too.
Okay, yeah.
This is the first time hearing of this specific
of the wall.
The whole Moon-eyed people.
Yeah, so that's one of many different ones, and that one, each of them have like their own unique twist to them. So like again, like in Texas, they're called the Wild Men. There's a really solid movie if you want to watch something, Bone Tomahawk.
I've seen Bone Tomahawk. That's a great movie.
Yeah,
although I would say a couple different things. Don't watch it with kids. It's not a movie you want to watch with kids, and if you're squeamish, you should be ready for some specific scenes that you maybe need to turn away from. But other than that, it's a great movie.
It's a very accurate depiction of what the average Native American was like to deal with the settlers.
Agreed. It's much like the Horizon, the movie that Kevin Costner made.
I don't think I'm familiar with Horizon, but Bone Tomahawk, at least, great film. Oh, I guess we're bringing up the structure on stream.
Yeah.
That is a lot less of a structure than I was expecting, but I guess it would have been a lot larger before. It definitely looks man-made.
Yeah. So this one is in Georgia. I believe that there are some other structures in North Carolina and in South Carolina as well. Obviously, this is a last second stream that we're putting together here. So I've not had an opportunity to collect all of my info. However, we do go into this in a little bit more detail in the, I believe it's episode 2 of the Green Room. I think there's a few more bits of info in there, like some pictures and stuff in there as well. But yeah, believe there's some other structures. I think I can find those too.
I think since we can easily just feed people over to go watch more of our other classics, other hits. What do you have on the Hollow Earth, Kevin?
Yeah, so the Hollow Earth is something that a lot of people that gets into these type of subjects. If you're an Art Bell fan or any kind of schizo type of theory, anything in the conspiracy world, you're going to hear about the Hollow Earth. So I'll give y'all a really quick overview. And I know Kaiser, you've got a little bit of information as well, but for a little bit of background and context for people, the Hollow Earth is a well-known conspiracy theory. The claim is that the planet is entirely hollow, or there's a basically nothing in the core of the Earth. So within this Hollow Earth, there is to believe to be another Earth. Like the name of it is slipping my mind. Sorry, guys.
If you've ever seen Journey to the Center of the Earth, it is essentially based off of that, where there is a miniature world inside of Earth with its own sun, its own ecosystem, and potentially its own people.
Correct. Oh, and the name. So there's essentially, people believe that there's a civilization inside. They'll call it Agartha. And there are some people that believe that there's alien species in there. Some cryptids may have originated from the inner Earth. And there's a huge, there's a lot of people that believe that the government's covering this up. Now, I believe Edmund Halley proposed in the 17th century that the Earth may consist of a hollow shell. So that is where some of these ideas came from. But later, around the 19th century, John Cleves, I believe it's John Cliff Sims,
Yep.
he argued that, so he argued that the Earth was hollow with openings at the North and South Pole. Now, this plays into another conspiracy theory that people talk about all the time about why can we not just go to the North Pole or Antarctica? So a lot of people talk about that. Obviously that leads to a whole world of discussions about secret military bases and stuff like that. And I've heard the whole schizo theories around that, where this is to protect the opening to the hollow Earth. I've also heard like this is basically to keep whatever is in the hollow Earth from getting out and destroying us all here on Earth. But Kaiser, do you have any more information on this as well?
Yeah. So John Cleves Sims, he was a officer in the American Army during the War of 1812. Afterwards, he became very invested in this idea of the hollow earth. He did a bunch of mathematics that most people would dismiss as not true. That's mostly because they're a bunch of sheep. But essentially, he argued that there were 5 concentric shells within the earth, and that there were like 4 inner globes that each had their own atmosphere, light source, vegetation. He was very big on promoting this, and it got to the point where he would go around the United States doing lectures. He would send petitions to Congress, sent open letters to the entire earth about this. Had his own group of like disciples, groups who were like very popular in speaking about this. He eventually got to the point where he persuaded Congress to approve funding for what was called the U.S. Exploring Expedition under the John Quincy Adams presidency. And we actually were going to send an expedition out to go find the hollow earth at the poles, headed by John Cleves Sims, approved by Congress. Now, this got used by Jackson as one of his attacks against John Quincy Adams when he was pushing for the presidency. So they would kind of mock him for this. So even then, it was not like everyone was on board with this. On Quincy Adams' part, he's not necessarily fully on board with the hollow earth, but he was very on board with scientific endeavors. And so it's very likely that he would have supported this just so that way we could have seen what was up there, what was inside the hollow earth. We ended up funding a lot of Arctic expeditions later on without any interest in this. This was also around the same time that the Northwest Passage was being explored and trying to be found. So there was a lot of investment in just, hey, let's go send a group of adventurous men up north and go see what's up there. And so this was our version of that Jackson ended up shutting down, that we otherwise would have sent up there.
And I've got a picture, sharing a picture right now of Sims Hole.
A picture of Sims Hole. I would rephrase that one.
It's literally what it's called.
That is true. It is called Sims Hole. Yeah, that is the caption.
Wow, that's something. How does this theory account for like oil and other things that we harvest? Or do they just say
it's that we have like a certain level of crust that you can't. So it's not to say that there's no oil or nothing, or like you dig 10 feet down and you drop into an abyss.
Of course.
But that at a certain depth you would hit the entrance to Agartha, but it would be so far down that you couldn't even really get to it unless you went through the hole. Through Sims Hole.
Yeah, through Sims Hole. Here's this might help too. Here you go. So
interesting.
You note also there that it that one includes a few other of the things that get tied into it. So like Admiral Byrd is one that gets tied in, where Admiral Byrd supposedly flew across the Antarctica, flew into this, and then met the Aryan aliens who live at the center. So if you ever seen those schizo videos where there's like a flying saucer coming out of the middle of the earth, and then you have this like A10 eyes pale white skin, platinum blonde alien that's inside. That is where that comes from. And supposedly he met up with them when he went in there, and they talked to him, and they all had swastikas and other things too. But they were very enlightened. So that gets tied in as well.
You know, Hollow Earth got kind of like a reinvigorated once all of those videos around from 2004, those videos had been around a while. The quote unquote UAP, when they decided to change the term from UFO to UAP. But I believe it was around 2016, 17, 18, somewhere around in there. There were some videos from around 2004 where all of a sudden those UAPs were kind of coming out of water, and they were kind of going head on towards some of the fighter pilots. Hollow Earth did get kind of reinvigorated from those videos, because the whole theory was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. It's kind of fun and it's fascinating. But now you all of a sudden have video of, UAPs coming from water, because there are some beliefs that Hollow Earth, like, one of their gateways is through the water as well. Yeah, just as an aside to all that.
There was another reinvigoration too by David Icke, who proposes a different theory with Hollow Earth, where his involves lizard people who live at the center, and they harvest monoatomic gold, which I still don't understand exactly what that's supposed to be. But they skin suit and take over people. So he has more of like the negative side. You essentially have these two different competing ones on like within Hollow Earth, whether or not it is skin shifting lizard people who are controlling the world's governments, or if it's an enlightened race of Aryans that are trying to guide and help civilization. So you have that sort of Manichaean or like yin yang split even within the Hollow Earth camps.
Interesting. Yeah. I guess I was most curious about, the sort of crust aspect, but I guess, yeah, it makes sense where if you believe this theory, you would basically believe that it would be impossible for any man to hit this theoretical interior.
So you were mostly interested if you could start digging in your backyard and get into
yeah. Or how you would account for, significant digs of any.
Just skip the whole going all the way to the North Pole and just start get a shovel or a backhoe in your backyard and reach the aliens.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? It's funny because some of those arguments are very similar. There is some, even though they're at odds, there is some crossover between Hollow Earth and Flat Earth to some extent. Obviously, Hollow Earth gets a little bit more schizo versus, Flat Earth. The foundation of that is, well, they're lying to you. Obviously, there's a lot more to Flat Earth than just that, but Hollow Earth does tend to get really deep into, like you were mentioning, Kaiser, reptilians, a mythical Aryan race. Yeah, I mean it's such honestly, Hollow Earth could be its own episode. And with a little bit more preparation, I think that we could probably do it justice, which that's a hint for a future Schizo stream. We'll definitely do this theory some more justice.
Yeah, I think the best way to split Hollow Earth and Flat Earth is that Flat Earth largely ends once you get to Antarctica. There's supposed to be a giant ice wall that's defended, and that's the end of it. On Hollow Earth, once you get to the hole, that's where everything really begins. It's everything that's inside and internal.
Yeah, once you get to Sim's Hole, that's where everything begins.
Yeah, that's where the fun begins, right at Sim's Hole.
Interesting. The deepest hole that we've dug so far is 7.6 miles underground. Basically, that's as far down as we've gone.
Have you guys ever heard of Man, the chat's really gonna love this one. Have y'all ever heard of Mel's Hole?
No, what is Mel's Hole?
This is a huge. This is definitely for any Art Bell fans out there. Mel's Hole was this hole that this guy named Mel in Texas discovered. I believe it was in Texas. He has a famous episode where he just speaks to this guy named Mel. And supposedly ever since he's been a child, there's this like just endless gully or hole where people just throw in their trash, just whatever. And they don't know, where, they've never been able to confirm where it ends, how deep it is. People would even throw in dead animals in hopes that it would return. Oh, okay. There you go. Thank you, Mr. Higgins. It's in Washington. Thank you. See, there we go. We got an Art Bell respecter. But yeah, it's very, very interesting. And I've heard some connections to Hollow Earth within that. Obviously, it kind of goes a little bit deeper than that, but it's definitely for anybody out there. If you could ever just Google or look up or hit me up later, I can find you the episode of the Art Bell Mel's Hole episode.
Rest in peace, Art Bell, by the way.
Oh, and then Roman's shaman brings up another hole. I guess this is now the whole stream. I guess we could go into the movie with Shia LaBeouf later, but there's another one where I believe it's in Russia, but there's a video where they claim that this hole was dug. I think it was around 7 miles or something along those lines.
The deepest hole is in Russia.
Yep. I believe it is that hole. That the deepest hole that we have dug. They put, apparently you can't go down into it, but they put a microphone into it, and supposedly at the end you hear the screams of hell. That are at the end.
I will. Okay, a couple. Oh man, I'm gonna bum everybody out. So again, there was another Art Bell episode about that because he played that audio a ton, and I remember driving home after a gig one night and listening to that particular episode. I think it was like it was like a repeat or something like that. Scared me to death, but it kept me up for the rest of the night, which is great. But supposedly. That audio is from a movie, and what they did was they double dubbed it and then put some reverb on it. I found where it came from, what movie that came from. So unfortunately, I'm here to be a bummer and say that was a hoax.
How much did Israel pay you to tell us this?
$7,000.
Actually, it was Qatar. And I am, that Till money is really paying off right now.
So you're saying that Peter Thiel, Qatar, and Israel all paid you so that way you could lie to us and get us to not believe that there's a hole that goes directly to hell in Russia.
Correct. No, but if y'all can find that audio, it's pretty awesome to hear because it like without that particular knowledge that is just dropped, it is rather disturbing. But yeah. Anything else on Sim's hole or Mel's hole or any of the holes that we just talked about?
To me, the most interesting part of it really is just that we very nearly sent an expedition to actually go find this in the 1800s. That went before our Congress, that a president was backing it. I think it's really interesting just to see like how close we are to a lot of those ideas to this exploration, and how we really aren't that far off from it, especially that people have always been fascinated by the unknown, by things like that. I think no matter what, we're never going to end up like a highly rationalist people who only care about the material things. Everyone is always going to be wanting to find out what goes bump in the night, what is out there. And I think Marshall Dukat has a very interesting one that, unlike the audio that Kev claims is fake, that he was paid off to say, I would like to hear a little bit more about cattle mutilations and just how unexplainable those are.
Yeah. So I'm just going. I should say I'm just doing this off the top of my head. Because last minute guess. But I did watch. I would recommend everyone. You can find it on YouTube since nobody's gonna want to go subscribe it. This was a documentary that was done on Fox Nation when Tucker was still at Fox. Tucker Carlson, as many people may have figured out by now, is an interest in the paranormal and UFOs. This is not something that he's doing, I think, out of like some sort of pandering to like conspiracy theory people or anything. He has a legitimate interest in these things. And so when he was at Fox, he did a documentary that basically nobody saw except me on Fox Nation about cattle mutilation. And I watched it because I really didn't know anything about it. I was interested, and it was very interesting. I was going at it pretty skeptical. I'm generally, I'm a religious man, but when it comes to conspiracy theories, I'm generally pretty skeptical. And it's like, all right, well, there's got to be like some rational explanation here that I can come up with my brain that would explain these various mutilations. This is long afterward. This is years afterwards, but my grandfather was a farmer. My mom grew up on a farm, so he had cattle. So I've been around cows. I kind of get the deal on how it works and what's feasible and what's not. On a very layman's level. So I watched this documentary, and one of the things that Tucker had in the documentary is that he brought in like a team. I think it was like two brothers who were like butchers. The people when it's time to take one of those beef cattle cows and make them meat, you send them to the butcher, right? So you see two butchers with professional equipment that would try to extract basically the same things that were extracted from a cattle during cattle mutilation, which were organs. Reportedly, there were missing organs inside the cattle, and they couldn't do it without making a massive mess. One of the key allegations in these cattle mutilations is that there's not evidence of like a professional operation in terms of like using equipment that we would use today. There's no like tracks that people would bring in this equipment. There's no evidence, and there's no massive blood. Like if you were to extract these organs from these cows, you'd make a big mess, right? I mean, you can clean it up a little bit, but a lot of it on the ground and whatnot, you're not going to be able to hide that. So there's a lot of different things that just don't make any sense. And even today, I'm still willing to field explanations. If you look at the Wikipedia article, which is always interesting just in terms of like, what is the official, okay, well, you have this belief. What are the official explanation? Whether that's wrong or right, Wikipedia is going to give you generally like what the official narrative is. And the official narrative appears to be, well, it's mostly natural causes. Potentially it's like cults, people walking around doing weird things, which, I'm sure, and by the way, I'm sure in some cases, the cattle mutilations are not actually something that particularly interesting. It's probably just something that happened, the natural cause or whatever, and ranchers just trying to make a big deal about it. But I do believe, based on what I know, that there are situations that are just, it's very difficult to explain with our current level of technology and what we know about physics and what we know about the insides of a cow. All these things together, I think, it's very difficult to explain.
Yeah. Cattle mutilations are an interest of mine too. They're one of those that I've never quite wrapped my head around. Again, there's going to be a ton of reference to Art Bell in this episode, but Art talked about cattle mutilations a lot. He used to have Linda Moulton Howe on a lot. And she did quite a bit of investigations on cattle mutilations because in the 90s, cattle mutilations, along with crop circles, were all the craze. And those two can kind of be thrown together because obviously there's a lot of hoax around both, especially around crop circles, but there are some that have yet to be explained. especially some of the older markings that they have found. I do know in the 70s that the FBI actually did an investigation on cattle mutilations. And, you know, one of the things that they mentioned that they they thought it was like maybe predators or some scavengers. But I'm with you. Like the lack of bleeding, the surgical cutting, and you know, FBI informant in the chat, you know, he mentioned chupacabra. In the 90s, 80s, and 90s, actually chupacabra was a fairly it was a pretty well-known phenomenon. I know in Mexico and you know, in the south, below south of the border, and I have heard that some people do believe that chupacabra was doing that with you know, obviously goats and some other animals, but that here in America, those cattle mutilations, they were rampant, and they were too spread out to just be kind of like a, you know, one person, or for it to be an organized group. I mean, you would have to have the right kind of equipment, and really great coordination. And then when you think about it, in the 90s, it's not like it is here in 2025, where, you know, it would literally take phone calls or messages, you know, people sending out letters and stuff like that. Yeah, Kaiser, do you have any thoughts on it?
So mine, I always understand this in reference to UFOs. That's all I've ever really heard cattle mutilations in reference to. Is there any other explanations that really get thrown around for how these actually happen?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, like the number one explanation is natural causes. You know, dehydration. You know, blood flies, scavengers, predators, as he was saying. Another common official explanation is animal cruelty, pranks, or like, you know, people just, you know, fucking around. Secret weapons testing, which I don't really.
I've heard that one, that like some secret co-op government military experiment, which kind of goes back into your whole you know, UFOs, because there's a lot of people, including myself, at times. I think a lot of UFO sightings can be pointed at military or government experiments at times. So I think that's one. There's also, you know, the whole idea of it's paranormal or cryptids, like it's you know, Skinwalker or chupacabra.
Yeah. I think another one, as I think I referenced this, satanic cults, like cults just walking around. There have been sightings like people's in hoods or whatever. Again, you'd still have to explain how they were able to do that, right? How human was able to do that. Yeah, draining all the blood, very weird stuff. And of course, aliens.
And just to be clear, so the cattle mutilations we are talking about, there are specific ones that have been found that literally just cannot be recreated even by an expert butcher, correct?
Yeah, that's what the Tucker Carlson documentary tried to do.
And they failed.
They failed, yes.
They always fail. All of the every single documentary, whatever, any kind of recreation that they do, they always fail.
To be fair, to put on my skeptic hat and take off the tinfoil for a moment, if you are trying to sell this, I mean, it is a lot easier to just make a mistake or intentionally.
That is true. That is true. But I mean, if you watch it, I don't think those guys, and I mean, those guys are like professionals, right? You know, it's like their industry. I don't think, you know, it's not like you're grabbing two guys off the street just as a defense of.
Yeah, but I mean, you could also say like, "Hey, I'll pay you $1,000 to screw up butchering this cow."
True.
At the same
Yeah,
time,
I mean,
to put the tinfoil back on, how would they possibly want to risk their reputations of, failing miserably at something that any butcher could just see and go, oh, those guys are
yeah.
just
I mean,
idiots.
you could make a counter to this, right? And again, I've never seen anyone counter this, probably because not that many people have watched it, unfortunately. But yeah, I've never seen a good counter, and I'm certainly open to a good counter to that documentary, which you can find on YouTube. You just got to search, Tucker Carlson cattle mutilation, and it'll come up.
And to be clear, you have experience actually butchering cows, correct? Just from growing up on farms?
Me? No. I have experience being around cows and
Okay.
seeing how they're treated and fed, her, all that good stuff, right? But no, not but heck, generally the people who are at least this is the way things used to be, the people that would take care of the cows weren't the ones butchering it. You'd send it to a butcher, like the person that was like their full-time job. I don't know, with like homesteads today, I think sometimes people will butcher their own animals or whatever. I don't really know, but the way it worked back in the day is that the farmer wouldn't be the one butchering it. He would just be responsible for taking care of the cow until it was time to extract the meat. So.
Oh, I mean, that makes sense, especially because if you were caring for an animal, it might be rough if you raised it up from a calf to then go kill it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think my grandfather was practical enough, but I think it's more sort of like tools, right? Like the on the documentary, they show you the tools the butchers use, and some serious heavy duty stuff to get into a cow. So I imagine like there's a whole bunch of different things that go into it that you just need to have professional knowledge and expertise and equipment for. So,
and it would just be a different group of people than who would necessarily be running the farms, and that you do need that expert bit of equipment. So if you were just trying to hoax it, you would have to go out you'd have to be an expert butcher yourself, go out into your cows, butcher them, not in any proper place where you would actually butcher it, but then expertly do it on the ground, completely wasting the cow in order to spark up a bit of UFO tourism to your farm.
Yeah.
Which doesn't seem to me, as I'm saying all that, to really hold as much water, especially as someone who is either way. Like I'm not someone who's super invested in the cattle mutilation, but just trying to work through it. It does seem like something that holds some weight, as this is a very strange thing that occurs.
Yeah. I've read, reading over the official explanations, just prior to this stream. I just don't find them very, very compelling.
Yeah, I think I'm fully on board. I'm fully bought in. What is your preferred explanation of what actually causes this?
That's a really, really, really tough question in my opinion. Because it's one of those things where I look at it and I'm like, okay, this doesn't make any sense, which means, I have no rational explanation. Okay, well then what are the irrational explanations? Okay, all the irrational explanations to me as a generally like rational person don't make also, stretch my limits of believability. Like aliens, like do we really think that there are aliens coming down? And if so, why are they screwing with the cattle? What's going on there? I don't know. But the thing is, like, aliens are something with technology beyond what we understand is the most rational explanation because of what is required. So,
okay.
No, I tend to agree. Yeah. Go ahead, Kaiser.
No. I didn't really have much to add besides okay. Do we have any other thoughts on that before we go somewhere else with the rest of it?
no, other than I'd encourage everyone to watch that. Watch the documentary and come to your conclusions.
Search everywhere to find the Tucker Carlson documentary before you shut down Marshall Dukat.
Yeah,
That's right.
And I would say too, if you ever get a chance, look up some of Linda Moulton Howe's work on cattle mutilations, especially around the 90s. You're going to get some old school schizo theories as well. And those schizos those are some fun rabbit holes to go down if you have any time for it.
Yeah, the biggest familiarity I had specifically with cattle mutilation was the Skinwalker Ranch. But I don't know if you'd necessarily consider that cattle mutilations. Does that fall into it? His account was that it was a gigantic wolf that he shot multiple times that took the cows. But I believe that there were also some other cattle mutilations that they claimed occurred. They said everything under the sun happened here, from UFOs to military testing to skinwalkers. It's apparently in the show they're trying to find everything, and of course the cameras always cut off as soon as they're about to see it, or it just didn't capture it, and everyone just points and looks at it, and you don't ever see what actually they're freaking out about, which seems to be how most of the production shows about any of this go.
Yeah, you know, the Skinwalkers and Skinwalker Ranch, that's something that's been around for a while, and it's actually rather interesting. There you do have some YouTube channels like the Lore Lounge. You know, that guy does dig into Skinwalkers quite a bit.
Skinwalkers, sure, Haunted Cosmos has probably done an episode on it as well.
Yeah. Skinwalkers are just themselves a very interesting topic. And it actually has some pretty interesting lore behind it, some legend behind it. I think it's the Navajo that originally started to talk about skinwalkers, but skinwalkers are like one of those type of creatures that tend to get misidentified, or just kind of like,
it's probably the single most overused cryptid word to apply to literally everything when it refers to a very specific thing, which is a shaman, a medicine man who decides to do a bunch of evil magic to be able to transform into animals, and not literally everything under the sun.
Yeah, exactly. And usually the size of the skinwalker tends to get exaggerated.
As far as I understand, it's mostly just they can transform into an animal that is intelligent.
Correct.
And
go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
Oh no, I was just about to say, yeah, that you know, you'll hear some people talk about how it's just like either a 20-foot wolf, a 20-foot tall wolf. Then you'll hear people say it's just the most, you know, cryptid looking beast that you've ever seen. I've even heard skinwalkers, you know, be called the size of trolls. It's just kind of all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard even not deer be claimed to be skinwalkers, when not deer are very different and also a very real thing that exists out there. Are you familiar with that one? Maybe I should have gone with not deer as mine.
I'm not as familiar with not deer, even though I do know about it. I'm not as familiar with them.
It's a super simple one, and it's literally just that there exists deer which, if will either move on their hind legs, walk around, will do things that deer are absolutely in no way supposed to do, move faster than they're supposed to, or just be strange in a certain way, have, you know, an extra eye, an extra limb, something else to them that is not what a deer is supposed to have or act like. It really doesn't have much more else to that, but it's also one that a lot of hunters will claim to have seen before. But it does get just wrapped in as, oh, that's a skinwalker, when largely it's just, this is a strange creature that is not actually what is meant to be.
Huh. Do you know where usually the sightings tend to happen? Is it
literally anywhere that deer exist?
Oh, okay. So I'm pretty sure that we would have a lot around here in North Carolina too, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a friend who's claimed to see it, but he's also claimed to see anything under the sun. So I don't put a ton of stock into that.
I mean, there you go. Well, yeah. So we're coming to the bottom of the hour. I guess before we wrap up for the night, gentlemen, do y'all have any final thoughts on what we've discussed, or anything related to?
The one last thing I guess it interests me is, and this could be absolutely nothing. It could be that every, or at least the vast majority have explanations, and it's not that interesting. But the amount of people that go missing in national parks is of interest to me.
Missing
Again,
411.
yeah, again, something that you certainly have a lot of good explanations for these. Bodies are recovered or not, but you also have a lot where they're just never heard from again. So
Yeah.
No,
Again,
I'm
okay.
super fascinated by that. I also attribute that to albino troglodytes that live in national parks. That's my tie into that.
Feral, the feral people.
Yes, feral albino creatures that live in the woods.
Yeah. Yeah, again, I'm going to make another reference to the Lore Lounge. He does spend a lot of time on missing 411 files. Some of them he does debunk, and then other ones he's just unable to explain. I believe that there was a time where he mentioned that it was the Wendigo for some of these more unexplained ones, and the Wendigo is a fairly interesting cryptid, I guess, if it falls under that category as well. We'll have to do another stream on Wendigos and not deer and some of these other things that we didn't get to really touch on. But
I pretty much covered the entirety of not deer. It's a thing that looks like a deer, but it's not one.
Well, I will probably spend some time in my downtime just looking up pictures and spurging out on it. Mr. Dukat, do you have anything that you would like to shill or plug before we leave tonight?
No, other than just generally the Old Glory Club. If you're listening and you're not involved, you should make an effort to get involved. TheOldGloryClub.com. You can find all of our chapters there. I'm in the Venus Dominion chapter. If you're in Virginia and interested in that, we also have 2 sub chapters. The Bluestone Heritage League and the Stonewall Society that cover the Northern Virginia area and sort of the Western area of Virginia's, respectively. And I mean, my Twitter account is at Marshall Dukat. If you want to, get a billion retweets in your timeline, you can go ahead and do that or not. Up to you.
Yeah, I've got your link in the description. So I think everything's switched over from our guest from previous. So I think everything's updated. If not,
Excellent.
then after the stream tonight, it should be updated, and you can give Mr. Dukat a follow. Kaiser, do you have anything that you would like to show or plug, sir?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter, Kaiser Lowengram. Only the best tweets, all gems. Pure Gen Lyman on there. Do a lot of posting just about history mainly, or just whatever random topics. But my main passion is to talk about the American Revolution, founding fathers, different aspects of our history and heritage.
Perfect. And my info is also in the description. And if you're, excuse me, Mr. Dukat did mention the OGC. If you're in North Carolina, give us a shout if you would like to inquire about membership at the NGS. We've got some other links in the description to our website, our Substack, and if you feel the need, you can also donate. But yeah, that will do it for our Schizo stream. We've got another stream coming up next week. Melon will be our guest. It's going to be our Halloween special. So if you're interested in hearing some more schizo stories, then definitely feel free to check us out next week. Yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. And Mr. Dukat, thank you so much for hopping on at the last moment. We really, really do appreciate it.
You're welcome. I hope I was able to be a decent guest. It was kind of mostly seat of my pants stuff. So
no, it's all good. Same
we were
for
all
us.
there with you.
All right, y'all. Well, y'all have a good night, and we'll see y'all next week.